Antigua fight for parental rights is far from over. Ultimately, I'm sure we can agree that we should be convincing our legislator of different facts. And I think it's been a wake-up call for people on both sides of the vaccine debate. Parents are not only concerned about the safety of vaccines, but the principle behind it. We're having our rights taken away as parents, and I think people have been asleep at the wheel for a long time, and now they realize they need to get involved in electing people who are making decisions for our lives. So today we have some speakers, hopefully, and you'll hear about why those parents choose alternative schedules for their children, the impact that this will have on so many communities, why children with PBEs are not a threat, vaccine injuries, why families don't fully know their rights, and how schools are giving out misinformation at this time because they haven't been given the information from the top down, starting with the state board to the county boards down to the districts and then to the schools, because the schools at this time have absolutely no idea what they're going to do with this. They haven't received any instruction. So this is a poor law. It doesn't protect families. AB 2109 was sufficient, and one of the things we'd like to ask of you today is to reach out to your county boards and state boards and let them know that this law is excessive for the communities, and possibly grant an extension of time for the PPE filings, because we know that the 2 weeks that we have left now, how hard is it going to be for these families to get an appointment with a doctor that probably won't give us one until mid-January if we're lucky. I want to thank you guys for setting the bar in the meeting. Many districts now have followed because we've informed them that you sent out the mass email and updated your website. So many other districts now have followed suit. Is that my time?
It's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Can we grant the 4 minutes per speaker maybe? I'm in favor of 4 minutes per speaker. I can't get a second up
Should we wait until the end to ask our questions?
Darlene Alfaiza, you'll be next, and
Shonda.
Shonda.
Am I okay to start?
Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Shonda Lobatos, and I'm a mother of 4 children. Additionally, I've been working with special needs children since 1999. I've worked in homes, applying APA tools, applied behavior analysis. I worked as a therapist, supervisor of behavior programs. Currently, I work as a parent consult. I also do trainings within an adult day center for adults that have disabilities. When I first started working in this community back in 2000, it was 1 in 450 with autistic children. Today, we're at 1 in 48. Now, part of my job is that I go into the houses and I ask the onset of the behavior. That means what happens right before the behavior. When did this all start? When we're talking about behaviors, we're talking about tantrums, self-injurious behaviors. We're talking about physical aggression, verbal aggression, sensory overload. And I ask for the onset. I've had parents come to me, I'm not saying all of them, but listen to my words. Well, he had vaccinations, he got sick, and then he stopped talking. He started hitting his head. He started crying all night. He stopped eating what he used to eat. Now, I'm not saying everybody, but this has been my experience. When you have a pattern occurring of parents that are telling you the same answer, you have to conclude that 1 + 1 is 2. There's something with the vaccines. I'm not saying all of the vaccines are doing this to all of the children. So, I am a person who had febrile seizures. I have ADHD, as well as I get asthma, and I have 4 children. My youngest one started to have asthma. We were back and forth to the hospital. Back and forth, back and forth. I used other alternatives. I stopped going to the doctor. I did homeopathic remedy. We haven't been to the doctor in the emergency room in a year. So I propose this to you guys. I want you guys to go in the homes of these parents that have these children that do these behaviors. You guys have no idea what these parents go through. They change their diets, they stop the vaccinations, they flip things around, they have to get extra help. And in order to get in-home behavioral services, you don't even know what the parents have to go through. So, yeah, applying this law to legislators that an outbreak that occurred at Disneyland, where 80% of them were vaccinated, to impose this upon these families is absurd to me. It's very concerning to me. It bothers me from the bottom of my heart because I went into this job because I love children. It is very hurtful to see what's going on. So I present this to you guys. I understand it's a law, but as a community, we need to come together and we need to problem solve this. My 4-year-old will not be going to school because I'm not giving him any more immunizations. We were back and forth in the hospital. He was on inhalers. It was horrible. And we don't know the implication of these vaccines because they haven't done studies. Thank you for your time.
Could I ask the people that are speaking to let us know what schools they're from?
Okay.
Would this be helpful?
Next.
Anaheim.
Oh, Anaheim. Darlene?
Hi, good evening. I'm Darlene Alquiza. I'm from the Fullerton School District, Sunset Lane, Park Junior High, and St. Hills. That's where I went. And my husband is also from the Fullerton School District. That's where we met, at school. So I want to start by saying that the current exclusion guidelines have proven to be effective, and I can attest to this with my over 10 years experience in a classroom setting. I have a master's degree in human development, specializing in early childhood education, and my bachelor's degree is a Bachelor of Science in Child and Adolescent Development, but also specializing in research methodology. I did speak at the last meeting where we talked about SB 277, and just to remind you about my daughter, who I brought with me, her story. She was born in the 25th percentile, very healthy, and she was thriving until she received her polio at 5 months. She developed rashes, allergies, weight loss, blood, liver, gallbladder issues. She fell off the scale and was labeled failure to thrive. And for 10 months, the doctors could only tell me, I don't know why. So this is very concerning to me because they're telling me I don't know why, but I don't feel comfortable giving you a medical exemption because it doesn't meet the CDC guidelines for granting medical exemptions, which I just want to make a note. When it was said that the law provides flexibility, I don't think the doctors are aware of that. Because again, they are so scared about losing their license, as from what they've told me, that they're only following the strict CDC pink book and not looking at the individual children. I do want to point out there are no studies that have been done on the current vaccine schedule, and individual vaccines are only tested against other vaccines or vaccine ingredients, and they're not done on tested against placebos, and that's just knowing my research background. And so when you go to the doctor's office, they don't know what they're seeing because many of them have never seen it before to recognize it because the vaccine schedule currently is so aggressive and they've never studied it. So when it comes time for my daughter, who's 2.5 now, to start kindergarten, I asked, who will accept liability if I get her vaccinated in order for her to go to school? If she gets sick again, it's going to be on me, and it's my responsibility to make sure that she's safe and to take care of her, both at home and at school. So looking at it as a requirement to go to school, where does that place me as far as being liable for my daughter? So I want to ask if you would consider, with the way that the law is written, would you allow parents to have, who like me have very young children, would you allow us to turn in a PPE now, before January 1st, and hold it on file? Because if I'm living in the same area and still being in Fullerton, would that be in the parameters of the law that I could be admitted my child to school? Just one more comment. I do have my prior teacher here, and she really inspired me, and I do want my daughter to have those same experiences. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
If I can make a comment, it probably does not fit within the law to seek an exemption for a child that's not enrolled yet, but I don't see any reason why one could not record a document with us or send us a certified.
It's a transition time, preschool to kindergarten.
I understand.
But if she's not enrolled in.
I understand.
Yeah, that's the
That's
transition.
where you.
All I'm saying is, if I were in a position like you described, I would just send a request, whether we can utilize that request or not, at least you have a record that you sent it. It's just my thought.
Next
That's not an
up,
official. well,
Julie
it's my opinion.
Stockstill, and behind her, Leah Wilson.
Hello, board members. Thank you for listening to our concerns, and I really appreciate, as a Fullerton
resident all my whole entire life and in the Fullerton School District. I so appreciate your open ears and your open hearts to hearing our concerns. I would like to graciously thank you for sending out the telemessage and the email based on my request at the last meeting. I would like to just point out a couple things. The transitional kindergarten, that is included in the kindergarten program. The kindergarten program is a 2-year program, and I just wanted to make that comment so that there's no confusion on that. TK is included, so if there's a child in TK this year, they would be grandfathered in through 6th grade, and that is in the law. The other thing that I wasn't going to use my time to do this, but I do have copies of the law that I would like to give Carmen so that you guys can read for yourself the sections that your attorney was referencing. And bottom line, that wasn't a verbatim on his slide, and I would like to point out the fact that this is that section, that physical condition of the child is such, or medical circumstances relating to the child are such that immunization is not considered safe, indicating the specific nature and probable duration of the medical condition or circumstances, including but not limited to, family medical history for which the physician does not recommend immunization. That child shall be exempt from the requirements. So yes, it says that it's the medical history, yes, it says that it's the physical condition, but it states not limited to. And bottom line is that there is that, recommendation from the doctor of whether or not that child should be vaccinated or not. This law, for many reasons, is very poorly written. Mr. Briano had stated that there really isn't consequence to the district for being lenient on the implementation of SB 277. And I would really like to request that, this law does not go into legal effect until July 1st of 2016. Why is it that these parents have to have their personal belief exemptions in the next 2 weeks into the state? I mean, into the school district, because you guys aren't even really forwarding to the state as far as I know. But that's the biggest thing that I don't understand. I think that there needs to be some flexibility in entering these kids over and beyond that January 1st deadline.
Thank you. This is sufficiently complex for me. I'd like to ask the attorney a question related to those comments now. Do you agree with that assessment of not limited to?
Yeah, if you look at the slide, you look at the middle.
So it's fairly. It sounds to me it's fairly.
But not limited to. I have that.
So I mean, it sounds to me like any opinion of a doctor that if he thinks it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea. It's not limited to anything.
Well,
I mean, your opinion is your opinion.
I think, you could add factors, but I think you have to include these factors. Family history has to be based on, the doctor has to say, based on family history, I don't think it's safe for this child to be immunized. Not just this, what you indicated earlier, not in the child's best interest. I don't think that would meet these requirements. I think but not limited to means that you could add things beyond what's in that paragraph.
And then the speaker brought up another good point. If the law isn't implemented in July, what legally requires us to only accept waivers until the end of the year?
The law itself says January 1st, 2016.
So what would happen if we took waivers beyond that and attempted to enact them, and attempted to honor them?
Well, you wouldn't be in compliance with the law.
And is there a ramification to us for that?
There's no specific ramifications in the law itself now for not complying. But if there was, non-compliance throughout the state among school districts, most likely the legislature would then enact specific penalties. But there's no specific penalties now.
Are we asking questions now, or are we asking them later?
I just want to clarify something. I just heard from someone that they wanted to, that they got putting a letter in during TK for pre-kindergarten.
Yeah, TK is part of kindergarten for
Oh, so
purposes
that
of this law, so
letter
she was
will
correct
go
about
through the
that.
sixth grade.
So
Thank
if they're
you.
in, if they're enrolled in TK, then it would go through 6th grade.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
So-
Appreciate that.
But
So
the
when
legislature
we're
tried to
talking
do
about
that.
consequences, if we were not to, if we were to allow an exemption that wasn't up to par, and we had a student come in, and somehow a breakout happened, and our schools, people, children got the measles, would we then be liable for?
There could be some potential liability. There's no specific penalties, but it could open the district up to civil liability if you had a pattern of non-complying with the law. If you analogize it to, not stopping at a red light, and you go through the red light and you get into an accident, you violated the law, so that if an accident results, there's liability. So if you don't comply with this law, and somebody's injured as a result, and they can prove it, then there's potential liability.
And I have a couple of questions that are legal questions that I'd like to ask, and I've copied them, so if you can't answer them, that's fine, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a relatively new area, so I may not be able to answer all your questions, but I'll
My
try.
first one is, can the district disclose to the parents of other students and the teacher if a student has not been vaccinated? I know the HIPAA law, you can't say who it is. However, can they be notified that there are students in the classroom?
I think that information is considered confidential, so I don't think we can notify parents that somebody hasn't.
But as long as you don't use the name.
I don't think so, but I can
Look into
research
it,
it.
because that's something that came up. Does the district become liable if an unvaccinated student in a class contracts a disease from another student?
I would say possibly. We'd have
Well,
to-
the
exemption.
it's the context with an exemption or not with an
If they
exemption.
have an exemption, that's the risk.
And will parents be able to request that a student be moved to another class because of the presence? But if that ties into my first question, you can get to that later. Is there civil liability if one student contracts a disease from another? And then my concern is about teachers and their vaccination. I've got a question about that you can look into. Say we have a teacher in a classroom who's pregnant and a child hasn't been vaccinated. Do they have the right to be aware of that? Okay, I got the list here.
Okay, so.
You don't
if
need to
could send-
respond
Okay,
tonight.
great. Yeah, if you could send them to me,
Yeah.
I'll be glad to research them.
But some of what you're talking about already is part of the whole issue with vaccinations. All that's changing by the law is how you become exempt from vaccinations. And so there's already been exempt students within our schools, and they've been in the schools for years, for a long time. So the only change now is who is now exempt from vaccinations, and it moves from you for religious and personal beliefs stating you want it to you having a doctor's note. That's the only change. Otherwise, all of this has existed. I mean, that's why.
But we're going to see it a little bit more widespread, so I want to know where we're.
But I
what
think
roads
it's
we're
already
going down.
probably in law somewhere and the
We're
civil.
going to see what law.
So
We
anyway,
can
Do we have
research
more
it.
questions? Do we have
Thank
more?
you. Oh, yes, we do.
comments? Because
yes. Okay, Leah is up next. And then behind her is Dora Ramirez.
Hello, Leah Wissing, Fullerton residents. I do have an 8-year-old, or he's 9 now, he just had a birthday, a 9-year-old son, 3rd grade at Laguna Road, and I have a 5-year-old daughter, also at Laguna Road, who's a kindergartner. I am not anti-vaccine or whatever. I mean, my kids, I have their vaccinations here, records here. We've done a modified schedule, but they're fully vaccinated. So I just wanted to let you know, it's coming from like a different perspective. I will be filling out personal belief exemption forms, even though my 2 kids are fully vaccinated. into our school, to have that on record. Unfortunately, I also have a 2-year-old daughter who can't go to TK, who can't go to anything right now. And so I'm looking at homeschooling her, and she won't have the same type of educational opportunities as my 2 other kids will. Because I don't feel right at this point, continuing on with certain things, with certain vaccinations. And that's my choice, and that should be my choice as her parent. So I wanted just to discuss about the personal belief exemption. These kids pose no threat to our public schools at all. And if you accept the concept of herd immunity, then we are more than covered, because Orange County has a vaccination rate of about 95%. There's no reason to fear these children and ostracize them and create unnecessary panic among other students or families or parents. And even then, vaccines they have an established fail rates. So 100% compliance would not fully protect the school. IEP kids are not required to be fully vaccinated, and unvaccinated children come to school with their parents to drop off siblings and attend events. Parents and caregivers are not required to be up to date on their vaccinations. I don't know about you, but I don't remember my last vaccination, okay? I'm not keep passing around diseases to my kids or to the public. And teachers and staff are currently not required to be fully up to date either. There have been no outbreaks in California schools. I mean, this episode at Disneyland happened at Disneyland. It did not happen at Laguna Road. It did not happen at Troy or Fullerton High School. Some kids are missing one vaccination, like my daughter. Well, it was a mistake. She wasn't actually missing, it was a clerical error. And based on her just missing just one dose, would be excluded from school. And what threat would she have posed to other kids by missing one dose? What threat? So I just wanted to say that bottom line, vaccinated and unvaccinated kids will always commingle, there will always be play dates, there will always be Disneyland or trips or whatever. And to just exclude the one gathering place as being school does not make sense to me. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Dora, and I have 3 kids. I have a 20-year-old, I have a 15-year-old, and I have a 5-year-old. So my 5-year-old is not vaccinated because I have an autoimmune disease, and it's not that easy to get a medical exemption. I've been with my doctor for the 20 years that I've had my adult son. She's not willing to get a new one because of the climate of the law. So I just wanted to leave that there. Also, I do have a book, and it's called The Vaccine Whistleblower. So in August of last year, CDC whistleblower came forward, and Dr. Thompson, who is still employed at the CDC under protection of the Federal Whistleblower Protection Act, discloses a pattern of data manipulation, fraud, and corruption at the highest levels of the CDC, the federal agency in charge of protecting the health of Americans. Thompson states, senior people just do completely unethical things, vile things, and no one holds them accountable. This book nullifies the government's claim that vaccines are safe and effective, and reveals that the government rigged research to cover up the link between vaccines and autism. Scientific truth and the health of American children have been compromised to protect the vaccine program and the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I want to remind you that you did take an oath, and that is to protect from enemies, foreign and domestic. And I really feel that we're fighting a domestic enemy, which is the pharmaceutical company. If you guys take the time, you will find the research, and you'll realize why some of us are not willing to continue vaccinating our children. I'm going to gift you this book, and I hope that really each and every one of you reads it, because this bill should have never passed with this information. Thank you.
set my own timer since I can't see yours. So, whereas you have heard from some of us, we're parents who want to give you an idea, oh, my name is Susan Carter, sorry, of why we are choosing alternative vaccination schedules for our children. And most of us, as some of the other parents have said, aren't aimlessly following a B-list celebrity or some debunked medical study. Most of us have really principled reasons for our decisions. And those decisions are based in logic, ethics, morality. Some of us feel like, vaccines are a medical procedure. They require informed consent. When you go to the doctor, you have to sign a form saying you understand the risks and benefits. To require that for school means the government takes away your informed consent. If you choose to keep your informed consent, your only choice is to homeschool your child in this instance. That's pretty serious if we're allowing the government the right to make informed consent in a medical situation. So some people really object to that. Some of us have ethical objections to vaccines. There are vaccines cultured in aborted fetal cell lines. That's true. This whole business about Planned Parenthood and those organs from aborted babies, those are going straight to medical research. Make no mistake about that. And there are new fetal lines being developed for all those almost 300 vaccines in development. Some people, like myself, my son doesn't have his hepatitis B vaccination. You get hepatitis B through sex and drug paraphernalia. And I hope that there's no sex and drug parties going on in preschool. But under this law, he needs that vaccine to go to preschool. And children with hepatitis B, as I'm sure you all know, can go to school anonymously because it's not communicated in the school. It's silly to require the vaccine for children to go to school. And then you've heard from parents tonight whose children have vaccine injuries, and unlike your lawyer suggests, the law makes it seem very simple. Governor Brown said he approves the law because children can have medical exemptions, but they are very, very hard to get. Children who have documented vaccine reactions cannot get them from doctors. Even some doctors are refusing to even sign the personal belief exemption form, which the law clearly allows. So it's not as simple or as easy as it sounds. And I would ask you, if this was your reason for not vaccinating your child, if they had a reaction and the doctor wouldn't give you an exemption, would you vaccinate them anyway just because a legislator said you had to for your kid to go to school? In Orange County, almost 30,000 people signed the referendum to repeal SB 277. And I personally collected almost 1,000 of those signatures. I trained many of our volunteers, and every single parent who signed the petitions for me said unequivocally that in the circumstances this law remains in effect, they're going to homeschool their kids or leave California. And almost 25,000 public school kids in Orange County have exemptions on file, but that's less than 5% of the over 500,000 kids who go to school here. We have over 95% vaccination rates. If you believe in herd immunity, then you know that this handful of children without vaccine exemptions is not going to be spread wildly infectious disease among our schools. So I hope you can see this as a really nuanced situation. It's implied that it's very simple, but the legal counsel mentioned there's nothing written in the law about enforcement. The law says very clearly children with IEPs cannot be excluded from their services, but he's saying that they're not excluded from the law. So which one is it? The law doesn't say. It just says they can't be excluded. So we're here tonight because we're grateful for your phone message and email to us about filing the exemptions, but it's really insufficient. There's only a week left till schools close for winter break. It's not enough time for families to get an appointment with the doctor and get that exemption filed. We think it's your duty, as you're representing both us and the legal responsibility of the district, you're going to open yourself up to lawsuits because it isn't clear in the law how this bill will be enforced. And when children are denied school next fall, that's when the lawsuits are going to start. So we would like to respectfully ask you to request from the State Board of Education and the County Board of Education an extension of the PDE deadline to July 31st, 2016, which is when the law goes into effect, so that parents, the state can inform you how to enforce the law. And you can inform the schools, and they can give correct information to the families so that they can express their legal rights and you can be protected legally for giving correct information to the families.
So your request at the end of your very well-executed set of comments is that we ask the state and local governments to extend the waiver.
Absolutely. The way it's written in the law is that if a family files a personal belief or religious exemption by December 31st of this year, that their child, as you know, will be grandfathered in until the next grade scan starts. We already talked about that. But the law doesn't go in effect until July 1st of 2016. It's a kind of a weird thing why the deadline would be now, but the law doesn't go into effect until the summer. So we're just asking you to request And we know you can't do it, right? We know you have to comply with the law. But we would like you to request the county and the State Board of Education to simply extend that PDE deadline until July 1st, which is when the law goes into effect. Then the state can tell you how to implement it. They can get their act together. We can fill in all these gray areas in the law. And you can inform families correctly. Your schools were telling families at the beginning of September that the law went into effect this year. That's not true. So you open yourselves up to really serious legal consequences if your schools are giving families misinformation and then they can't execute their legal rights based on that misinformation. So we just want all these dots to be, T's to be crossed, I's to be dotted, and the lines to be brought into alignment so that families and everyone is abiding by this law legally. So it makes sense to push that PDE deadline back to July 1st. Then it's all synced up. They give you the information, you give it to us. Everybody's on the same page. We all go forward.
Zonia Townsend. Thank you very much. The good thing about coming in last is that all these points have been covered, so I don't have to repeat. And I'm a resident of Fullerton. I have 4 kids, 2 granddaughters here. But I wanted to say, we all talk about, and especially home as a health professional, this informed consent. Informed consent, I think we're being complicit about it because even when we go to the doctor's office, just with vaccinations, they just quickly have you almost as they're giving your child the vaccination, oh, sign this and this, but they don't really give you full informed consent. They don't tell you the consequences. They don't give you a whole things ahead of time that will make. They don't give you a balanced perspective. And I think that, I know it's not within your scope, but I think that because we have a moral responsibility to advocate for our children, not only as parents, but as educators and medical professionals. And we realizing that the pharmaceuticals, that they cannot be sued, and there has been so many injuries. Vaccine, over $3 billion has been paid out, but yet they can't be sued. Now I know that there is on the federal level, HR 2232, which is the national version of this SB 277. And basically, it's going to give a blanket vaccination to all the students that are enrolled to be mandated to be vaccinated. Can we not see what's going on? They're taking our rights little by little. A medical procedure, they're mandating it without the parents' approval. And you and being in the positions that you're in the roles, it's very important. We're being complicit if we don't stop and call attention to what's going on. So we know it's all tied into the money, like Common Core. It's like if you don't go with the program, then you don't get your federal money. But our kids' health, our future, our posterity, we have to think about those. So thank you very much for putting time aside and listening to us. Thank you.
Hello everybody, Dr. Rod Klopp from a chiropractor here in Fullerton, and I just want to speak